All right, everybody. It's week 3. Oh, we've learned so much in the first 2 weeks. I'm here to answer all your questions that you've got. Jump in. Let me know what's on your mind, what you need this week, who you're looking forward to seeing, all that type of stuff. Let's dive in. Let's have a lot of fun here. Hit me with questions on YouTube. Hit me with questions on Twitter. Whatever you guys got, I'm here to answer all your week 3 questions. This is going to be a fun slate overall. Man. I got to tell you, we're not starting off with a fun one here on Thursday night, though, right? That's a tough look, but we got a lot of good ones coming up. Let's go to the YouTube ones first here because I see a lot of good ones already there. First up from Cade Smith. Let's bring their question up here. We got AJ Dillon or Alan Lazard rest of season. I feel really good, really strongly that the right answer here is AJ Dillon. I think that, y'all know if you listen to the Yahoo Fantasy Football Forecast, you should listen to it. You should subscribe and get it wherever you get your podcasts. You know that I was really high on Aaron Jones this year. I still think Aaron Jones is a clear-cut top 10 wide receiver play running back play the rest of the season. But I also think A.J. Dillon's a top 20 running back rest of season. And Alan Lazard, I'm just not 100% convinced that he's going to have like a really strong passing game role here, that he's going to have the air yards or the target percentage he needs. So give me A.J. Dillon rest of season over Alan Lazard. Charles, welcome back, Charles. Thank you for hanging out with me again. I saw this question. I also saw a couple questions on Twitter about Elijah Moore long-term, worried about him. So, and he is asking about Elijah Moore here as well. So let's talk about Elijah Moore real quick. I'm actually really not concerned about Elijah Moore long-term. I do think I'm adjusting expectations on him for this year because Garrett Wilson is a baller. I hate when we get in these situations where it's like, pick one or the other, like pick this guy. Like obviously Garrett Wilson, him balling out means that Elijah Moore stinks. No, it doesn't. Elijah Moore is still a really, really good player. Elijah Moore is actually playing the harder receiver role in the Jets offense. That's what I think people don't realize, is that he's out there as the ISO X receiver running against press coverage a lot, running the vertical routes. That's going to lead to some hit or miss production. Meanwhile, they've got Garrett Wilson running those like layup routes. He's running out of the slot more. He's playing off the line. He's the pre-snap motion guy. I didn't expect Garrett Wilson to be playing it that much right away. So that I'm happy to be wrong about that. But Garrett Wilson's a stud. He does change the outlook for Elijah Moore the rest of the year. But I have like my level of concern on Moore is 0 in terms of like a long-term perspective. So that answers the Twitter question. Charles, though, man, I kind of think Jacoby Myers is the better start this week, especially in a full point PPR. Baltimore secondary stinks. Jacoby Myers is getting a ton of air yards. Targets per route run is up there over 30%. I think Jacoby Myers is looking really good. Just kind of a disrespected player all around is Jacoby Myers. So I think you start Myers and you feel pretty good about it. Next question here on YouTube. Trent E. asks us, what is your outlook on Treylon Burks for the rest of the season? Just traded Romeo Doubs for him in full PPR this morning. Well, number one, 100% would rather have Treylon Burks than Romeo Doubs. Doubs is like, he's never going to have a ton of upside in this passing game because number one, he's a 4th round rookie. I don't think he's shown anything special to this point, from a prospect standpoint, or so far in Green Bay. So I'm not crazy about Doubs. With Burks, he actually ranks number 2 in targets per route run among guys who've run 20 plus routes this year. He's behind only Stephon Diggs. So when he's been on the field, they have been trying to get him the ball. Treylon Burks. The problem is he's not a complete player right now. He's going to play more and more as the year goes on. I think he's like a bench stash basically right now. My worry about Treylon Burks, not just from like a talent perspective, but also from a Titans perspective, man, I'm a little concerned that like by the time Treylon Burks has developed enough that he can handle a full snap load, that Mike Vrabel trusts to put him out there on a route by route, down by down basis, that the Titans offense might just be in the total trash. Not great. That is a little concerning. And then we're playing Malik Willis and they're running the ball too much for any pass catcher to matter. All right. Next question here I'll take from a Twitter standpoint. Humble brag, actually, I saw ask this, just rest of season in a non-PPR. I do still want Elijah Moore over Treylon Burks long-term, just to connect two dots that we just talked, and that includes rest of season. Somebody asked about DJ Moore. Oy. DJ Moore, man. Not fun so far. Baker Mayfield, not playing well. Panthers offense, not playing well. I saw a stat this week that Matt Rule, I've read this off on the podcast a couple times this week. Matt Rule is 1-24 when teams score 17 plus points against the Carolina Panthers. That sucks. In today's NFL, everybody scores 17 plus points. So that's pretty terrible. Not great there for Matt Rule and the Carolina Panthers. I have bumped DJ Moore down to like a mid wide receiver 2 in my rest of season rankings. I think that's probably the way we're going to go with DJ Moore. It's going to be a little volatile here. I do expect it to be better though than it's been through 2 weeks. So I'm obviously concerned. But yeah, I'm a little concerned. I'm a little concerned right now with DJ Moore if you've got him, but I would hold on to him. I even think he's a decent buy low, but I'm a little concerned. A couple other Twitter questions here to hit. Let me, oh boy, make me feel better about being stuck with Kyle Pitts, please. Well, for one, I'll make you feel better in this respect. You've got a volatile tight end that's not getting enough targets. That's all of the tight ends. Unfortunately, you spent a 3rd round pick on Kyle Pitts. I do think it'll get better. I think he'll be fine. Like an air yards perspective, he looks pretty good right now. The problem is, everybody out there is saying Arthur Smith and the Falcons, they're not getting the ball to their best player. They are getting the ball to their best player. They are scheming up looks for their best player. Their best player just happens to be named Drake London, not Kyle Pitts. That's the biggest problem for Kyle Pitts. I want to see if these two guys, Drake London and Kyle Pitts, can have great games together with Marcus Mariota as their quarterback. I think that's kind of my biggest question right now. Is it possible for both of these guys to pop off together? I'm not 100% sure on that. So I think you're just holding and hoping it gets better with Kyle Pitts. I actually don't have a ton to make you feel better, other than we think he's a good player. And I think they're using him right this year. Like the usage is fine. They're not having him run a ton of routes as an outside receiver. They're getting him matched up with linebackers and safeties much more. That's what you want to see. So I know Kyle Pitts is a huge talking point in fantasy, circles this week. Drake London, I think, is just better. I think that's probably where we're at. Another Twitter question here from Elv Dog asks, Terry McLaurin upside, is it capped this year with Dotson and Samuel in the mix? Yes. I am. The upside is capped 100%. So there's just no getting around that. The upside is capped. And I love Terry McLaurin. If you guys have followed my work with reception perception over the last 3 or 4 years with Terry McLaurin in the league, he's a star, man. I think he is a legitimate number 1 receiver. He's awesome, but he's not going to see the target share that he's seen the last couple of years because Washington's receivers are healthy. Number 1, Jahan Dotson is a baller. Jahan Dotson is a really good player who, despite being a smaller guy, wins in contested situations, wins down the field in the vertical game. You have to adjust to Terry McLaurin because of that. Also with Curtis Samuel, man, I've been saying this. Curtis Samuel is good at football, okay? He had a great 2020 season. He just got hurt last year and dealt with nagging injuries. So the disrespect on Curtis Samuel's name continues to be disgusting. He is a good player. They're designing looks for him. He's crushing it in this role. That's going to continue. This is a coaching staff that was familiar with Samuel from his days in Carolina. They're going to continue to scheme up looks for him. So yeah, for me, Terry McLaurin, I think he doesn't have the ceiling that we thought before, but he's still a good player and a guy I don't mind having on my fantasy team. He's just going to be a little more volatile maybe than you thought before. Let's go back to some of the YouTube questions here. Producer, please pull up Sutton 2785. Very torn between 2 running backs for non-PPR. Henderson, CP, I'm guessing that's Cordell, Patterson, and Dameon Pierce. I think Dameon Pierce is going to have his big breakout game this week. Didn't get the usage that you wanted in week 1. Did get the usage that you want in week 2. And now he's going against a Bears defense that's just been disgusting so far through 2 weeks. Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon ripped him up in week 2. I don't have a ton. I mean, Elijah Mitchell was going to run all over those guys in week 1 if he didn't get hurt. in that monsoon game with the 49ers. So I think that Dameon Pierce has this big game this week. I think you start him this week. And then between Daryl Henderson and Cordell Patterson, I mean, I'm going with Cordell Patterson. He's not going to have like a dominant bell cow workload. We know that. This is not in Cordell Patterson's game. But good matchup against the Seahawks. Good play overall from CP so far this year. So I'm going with Patterson there over Daryl Henderson. It looks like the Rams backfield is just back into a committee, which is what they told us it was going to be all off season. Next one here from E. Jones Bones. Some of these names, man. With Dalton Schultz status up in the air, rate your first and second choice out of Knox, Irv Smith, Tyler Conklin, Evan Ingram, Isaiah Likely, and Mike Gesicki. No good option. I mean, I don't love anyone here. I don't mind chasing a touchdown with Dawson Knox. You know, I think Knox is still getting decent route opportunity, decent route participation in a good offense. He's probably still my first choice here. And I think my second choice might be Irv Smith. And maybe even Irv Smith is my first choice over Dawson Knox. So I don't know how good of a player Irv Smith is, but they need someone else to step up in this passing game beyond Justin Jefferson. Irv Smith, you know, he had some rough moments. He had some good moments against the Eagles on Monday night. The opportunity is there for Irv Smith, and the Detroit Lions defense is not good, and their offense puts up points. Like, Detroit is going to hit the over in their games basically every single week because their defense has, you know, some holes in the secondary, and their offense puts up a lot of points. So I think actually chasing Irv Smith there is probably the best one to go with. Next YouTube question I'll take here from Justin. Thoughts on Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore rest of season outlook? I mean, Toney, man, he's just not playing enough. I'd like to hold on to him to see if at some point he gets a full set of routes, a full set of snaps. But man, I mean, the longer that this goes on and the more practice he misses, the more that the coaching staff loses faith in him, the longer it's going to take for him to get out there. And, you know, he's missing some practices again this week with a hamstring injury. You know, we'll see. I think he's a guy that you can probably drop at this point, although I'd rather hold on to him. If you have like someone you need to pick up off waivers, I think you can drop him, because also I still have serious questions about Kadarius Toney as a player. Like, he's not a good route runner. He's not a good technician. And like, those guys are tough to integrate into the offense. Sky Moore, rest of season outlook. I hope we just see more of Sky Moore going forward. Look, I don't have a ton of faith in MBS. I don't have a ton of faith in like McCole Hardman. I think Juju is still fine. I saw some questions about Juju panic. Like, I'm not panicked about Juju. I think he's still playing a ton. He's not going to be dominant, but you didn't draft him to be dominant. You drafted him to be like a guy that's a high end 3 or a low end 2. I had him ranked as wide receiver 24. He kind of went off the board as wide receiver 30. He probably finishes around there, in that range this year. He's going to have big weeks. He's going to have slow weeks like he did last week. So I'm not really worried about Juju. I do think that when it comes to Sky Moore, the second you see him like bumping up from a route participation standpoint or a snap standpoint, pick him up off of waivers, because he can play. He can be a difference maker for this team. So again, that's my thoughts on Sky Moore. The second you start to see him playing more, you're going to want to pick him up before he has that big game off the waiver wire. Bobby Bees asks us, what's Christian Kirk's dynasty value going forward? Do you see him being a top 50 player in the years to come? Top 50 overall is a lot to ask, but I think Christian Kirk needs to rocket up dynasty rankings, man. He got paid by this team. Trevor Lawrence has taken steps, and Christian Kirk is good. He was underrated this year. So I think his dynasty outlook is definitely going up. I'll take one more YouTube one before going back to Twitter here. DT Vex. I don't want to skip over your question. Should I trade Najee Harris for Nick Chubb? Yeah, I want not Nick Chubb over Najee Harris the rest of the season. So, it's just not going great for Najee Harris and the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. We'll see how they play tonight on Thursday Night Football. Low projected point total game, but I think I'd rather have Nick Chubb at this point. I was too down on Nick Chubb this year. I'll take the L on that one. Couple more Twitter questions. The only way I could feel better about Kyle Pitts is if you chart him. I will never chart Kyle Pitts because he plays tight end, and I chart wide receivers, period. End of story. Unless his agent wants to give me like 0.5% of Kyle Pitts' next contract, then I'll do it. But that's not going to happen, so it's never going to happen. All right. We've got a lot of questions about DJ Moore. I did say that earlier, so you can go back and listen there. Rico something or another asks us, Dylan Pollard or one of the Rams backs. I think Dillon's the best option there. Like I said at the top of this Q&A, Dillon, I think, is a every week top 20 running back play. Aaron Jones is going to be the guy that scores more points. He's going to be the better receiving back. He's just the more explosive player, period. But I do think that A.J. Dillon represents a decent running back to play. I think you throw him out there every single week and you hope that he scores a touchdown. You hope that is what you're getting out of him. A lot of questions still about Juju, Elijah Moore. We've already talked about these guys. This is a good one. Schnazzle asks us, Everett or Irv Smith, full point PPR. Gerald Everett, dude, looks awesome. I think Gerald Everett's kind of an every week starter at tight end. I'm not quite there with Irv Smith yet, so give me Gerald Everett there. Give me Gerald Everett as the guy. I see Financial Awareness with Case Skull asked the exact same question on YouTube. It's Gerald Everett over Irv Smith for me. Unless Justin Herbert doesn't play, then obviously don't play Gerald Everett, of course. All right, I'll take a couple of more here from YouTube before jumping out. A little bit of a shorter Q&A session this week. Cade Smith asks, do I drop Chase Edmonds for Chris Olave, Treylon Burks, or Kenneth Walker? Good timing, too, because somebody asked on the Twitter chat about Chase Edmonds' rest of season. Not looking great for Chase Edmonds, splitting the backfield with Raheem Mostert. Now, if Raheem Mostert gets hurt, and he's gotten hurt previously, he's had an long injury history, then I think Chase Edmonds is looking better. I would drop Chase Edmonds for Chris Olave. I wouldn't drop him for either of the other guys, though. So I would hold, if you're Kate with this question here, I'd hold on to Edmonds unless you drop him for Chris Olave. The other two guys I don't want. I'm still okay with Chase Edmonds. I think better days are to come when the Miami Dolphins figure out their rushing attack. E. Jones Bones also asks us, is Zeke's disappointing production the first two games an overreaction, considering he had some pretty tough running back matchups? I think it's a slight overreaction because, as you mentioned, the matchups have been tough. The Bucs defense is awesome, man. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter so far through the first two games. I think that's going to be a really low-scoring game between them and Green Bay this week. I don't know if it's a total overreaction. I still think Zeke is like a top 17 running back this year. More touchdowns will come when Dak Prescott is back, but Cooper Rush being like potentially viable is good. Is good for Zeke going forward. Good for all of these guys going forward. So give me. I think it's fine. I think it's fine for Zeke. He's not going to have a great ceiling, but we knew that when we drafted him that he was going to have a great ceiling. It's a lot of like touchdown or bust type stuff. Last one. We'll finish with another tight end question here. Justin Smith asks Evan Ingram thoughts. I mean, I think Evan Ingram is fine. He's getting good opportunity in a Jacksonville offense with the quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, who's playing pretty well right now. I think Trevor Lawrence, huge progress from game one to game two. And we have to remember with Trevor Lawrence, man, this is essentially the first year he's getting NFL coaching. A lot of weird stuff going on in Jacksonville last year, not NFL coaching. That was what was not going on in Jacksonville last year. So I think Evan Ingram looks like the second best pass catcher beyond Christian Kirk in Jacksonville. I think if you're desperate at tight end, and everybody's desperate at tight end, he's a guy that's worth sticking at the end of your bench. I think I'd rather have like a Tyler Higbee type and a couple more like Irv Smith, Gerald Everett questions in the chat. I see. I would rather have like Gerald Everett over Evan Ingram, but in terms of like Irv Smith, Evan Ingram, I think that's kind of where you're looking at the cutoff point there for Evan Ingram. Probably guys to have on your lineup there. I think if Justin Herbert plays, Gerald Everett is he stands above all these guys we're talking about here. I think Everett it just looks great right now for the Chargers outside of that pick six play where he was gassed and tried to get himself out of there. That was a tough look for our guy, Gerald Everett, but he looks pretty good in the Chargers offense right now. So he actually looks like to me, I drafted David Njoku in one league and couldn't cut him fast enough for Gerald Everett after week one because of the opportunity that Everett has in that passing game. And if you listen to the Yahoo Fantasy Football Forecast, you should, by the way, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. You would have heard Austin Eckler on basically every Eckler's Edge episode so far, including the one in the preseason, that Gerald Everett was going to ball out. So shout out to Austin on Eckler's Edge and the Yahoo Fantasy Football Forecast for giving us that inside info. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. If you have more questions, of course, at Matt Harmon _BYB on Twitter, check me out there. like the screen says here, listen to me on the Yahoo Fantasy Football Forecast as well. Just recorded a great preview episode with Tank Williams this week. That was awesome. And of course, we've got Scott Pianowski every Sunday on the recap. So those 2 episodes are coming up. Appreciate y'all for coming out. Have a good week 3. Good luck out there.